Hello photographer, welcome back to my channel. It's Belinda and this is where we talk all about photography, from inspiration to camera techniques to editing skills so that you could take better photos. As you all know, my channel isn't really about gear, neither is photography just about gear, but I feel like the way companies market their products today can make it a really fine line between making an impulse purchase versus making a genuine investment. And when it comes to a tripod, you want to be really wise with how you spend your money. If you get a really good one that serves you well, you will be able to save hundreds, if not thousands of dollars down the years, if not decades. So if you want to skip right through to the features, there's a timestamp down below, but if you want more background and also my thoughts on tripods and gear in general, then keep on watching. This video is not going to be about the tripods that I own, which I want to talk about just because I own them. Neither is it going to be about the best tripod. They tell you about the latest, the greatest, the fancy features and all those flashy buzz. And when you look at the price tag, you go, oh. Your heart sings, you come to the conclusion that photography is such a bougie obsession that is for the rich and for the fortunate, except that it's not. It doesn't have to, just look at me. Do I remind you of a bourgeoisie? I hope not. Or do I? Well, I shall see you in the comments. Alright, so off to the first feature that you should consider in getting a tripod, which is the material in which it's made. Today in the market, there are widely two types of materials available, firstly being carbon fiber and secondly aluminum. For that matter, I would almost 100% recommend the carbon fiber tripods for the very simple reason that it's much less weight on your shoulders. It's not to say that there's no point in getting aluminum tripods because they exist for a reason, being that they are heavier and that's why they offer a tiny bit more of stability. Let's run through some numbers together. There are so many models out there, so it's crucial that we make it a fair test. To do this, we need to compare the weights across tripods with a similar maximum height and loading. Aluminum tripods go on the left, while carbon fiber tripods go on the right. Alright, so here is the first pair. Look at the extended height and loading. Although the carbon fiber tripod extends to a greater height and carries more weight, it is actually 0.3 kilos lighter than its aluminum counterpart. Let's look at the other pair. Here we have two tripods from the same manufacturer. Both are from Manfrotto. And we have the exact same specs. We can see that the carbon fiber tripod is about 0.2 kilos lighter. Yet another pair. Again, we have the same brand, same loading too, and a difference of 2 cm in max height. The difference is yet more marked. The carbon fiber tripod is 0.5 kilos less weight than the aluminum. If you're really strong, maybe that doesn't quite make a difference for you over a short period of time, but let's say if you are shooting for a whole day straight, that would make a whole ton of difference. So my advice for you is to really seriously consider how sustainable it is for you and your back to carry an aluminum tripod for extended period of time. If you're watching this video, you're probably getting your first tripod, or in a more nuanced manner, getting your first serious tripod. If that's the case, what really matters most to you at this point in your career is to get more practice, to get used to using the tripod, to get used to bringing it to as many places as possible so that you get more experience. So when I was making my own tripod upgrade, I went straight for the carbon fiber tripods because, what would that extra bit of stability mean if I couldn't take it out with me? So it really is a no-brainer and I would recommend you do the same. The second feature that you should consider in relation to buying a tripod is how much weight can it carry. In order for you to make a selection based on that, you will first need to know how much weight you intend to put on that tripod. That is the combined weight of the heaviest camera body that you have and the heaviest lens that you own. Apparently it's going to be different based on the model of the camera and the lens that you own, but rather than sending you off to do your own research when in fact you landed onto my video because you're doing your research, here are some ballpark figures for you. Typically you can expect a DSLR body to weigh somewhere between 0.5 kilos to 1 kilo. As for mirrorless cameras, their bodies typically average around 0.5 kilo. And in relation to lenses, I'm gonna go about it by breaking it down into two general buckets. The first being telephoto zoom lenses that zoom from 70mm onwards. So the average weight for these type of lenses is around 1 kilogram. And for the other lenses, they average around 0.5 kilos. Okay, so that was a really rough estimation based on ballpark figures. But here is the implication for you. When you're buying a tripod, it will be safe for you to assume that your entire setup is going to weigh at least 2 kg. At this point, you'll be like, alright, so I'll just get a tripod that could hold 2 kg and I'll be fine. Wait a minute, it doesn't work like that. There are 2 reasons why you should be more generous in your estimation. First of all, it's a matter of the center of gravity. So let's use this camera I have over here as an example. It is a Nikon D300 body paired with a 7 to 55mm zoom lens for the crop sensor. In this setup, the body weighs 0.8 kilos, whereas the lens weighs another 0.8 kilos. So when it comes to a situation in which the weight is kind of spread out across the camera, the center of gravity is technically somewhere between the body and the lens. It's not entirely on the lens, neither is it entirely on the body. But the problem is that we are mounting the tripod right at the bottom directly under the body. Technically, in this case, you need a tripod that holds more than 1.6K for the entire setup to be stable. Secondly, what do you even mean when you say that the tripod can't hold a camera? In my opinion, the ability to hold a camera comes in an entire range. So on one hand, you have a tripod that could hold a camera really well, and on the other, there's another camera that the tripod could barely just hold. Somewhere on the spectrum, the manufacturer decides to draw the line. The reason why I want to tell you this is because tripods do have a weak spot. For instance, one of the weak spots, let me show you, is when you pull up the column all the way up and you mount your camera up there. This is a really weak position for the entire setup because the center of gravity is so high. Depending on your usage, it might not be immediately obvious as to why you want to shoot from that height, but you never know, and that is why you want your camera to be still even at that height. Let me demonstrate this point with this Manfrotto tabletop tripod. I think it's called a Pixie. So basically it says that it could hold maximum 2.5 kilos. But even when I'm using it with a Sony A7 Mark II paired with a kit lens which should weigh way less than 2 kilos, it just started slipping downwards. The figure that they give you is probably at the extremes where the camera isn't going to be super stable but it somehow still holds in place. However, when you're using your tripod, you want the camera to fall into the range that it could hold really well. So my advice for you is this. First and foremost, you need to know how much weight you're going to put on a tripod. Basically, add up the weight of the camera body that you own and the heaviest lens that you intend to use with the tripod. And then secondly, add another 3 to 4 kilograms on top of that as a buffer room. Apparently, you need a tripod that is going to realistically hold up your camera even at its most vulnerable positions. On the other hand, you don't want to be holding a really small camera or even an action cam with a tripod that holds, say, 8 kg, because the general rule is that you need to carry more weight in order to carry more weight. Probably tabletop tripods like these or even larger ones like these would serve you better. So if you already know that you're not going to put so much weight onto your tripod, then you can scale down the payload of the tripod that you pick. But on the other hand, if you do foresee yourself putting a large camera setup onto the tripod, then by every means be generous in your estimation. Now, the third feature that you should really pay attention to in a tripod is the maximum height that it could extend to. So basically, this was a tripod that I had been using before I switched to the Manfrotto B3 GT Pro. The main reason, as you could see, is that I had to squat down in order for me to use the camera. Well, actually, could you even see me? So whenever I had to take a picture on this tripod, I had to squat so low, which is fine if you happen to be a gymnastic as well, alongside being a photographer, but I am not. So I was giving myself a really hard time by going with a tripod that is way shorter than my eye level. So if you do foresee yourself shooting at a standing position, which what other position would you want to shoot at? Do get a tripod that is at your eye level because that's going to save your back a ton of pain. Also, if you are a photographer who happens to make videos or you are planning to start a YouTube photography channel just like I have done, here is another issue with shooting with a tripod that is not quite as tall as you are. Let's say you want to get a shot of yourself standing while you talk to the camera. You realize that the tripod actually isn't as tall as you are. So you will have to find another level platform to put this tripod on so it could be tall enough to get your entire body or your half body at least in frame, and that totally defeats the purpose of having a tripod at all. The fourth feature that you would like to consider before getting a tripod is whether or not it allows you to take photos in a portrait orientation. Now this sounds like really obvious. Why on earth would tripods not let you do that? But as absurd as it seems, there really are tripods that do not allow that. For example, the one I have here, which is the one I have been struggling with for so long, it only has one pan and tilt, handle. So basically what I could do is tilt it on the XY axis, but I can't rotate my camera. In relation to entry-level tripods, there are mainly two mechanisms through which they let you shoot in a portrait orientation. The first is the pen and tool mechanism, which is actually something really similar to this I have over here, but in order for that to happen, you need at least two knobs. So there's only one knob right here, which takes care of the X and Y axis, but you also need an extra knob which takes care of the Z axis, which is the portrait versus landscape orientation of your camera. The second mechanism that's really popular as well is the ball head, which currently I do own. So how it works is that you unscrew the knob and then you're free to move your camera however you want, and there's a dent in front of the ball head which allows you to tilt your camera to the portrait orientation, and that is how you do it. Now, apart from the two types of mechanisms that are rather conventional, recently there has been this new type of tripod which has bendable legs, and so basically how you could shoot on portrait orientation on this is just to bend the legs to a point where your camera is literally like in portrait orientation. Now, I do not recommend getting this type of tripod. At least this cannot be the tripod that you rely solely on, because first of all, these joints, they aren't that durable. Like, they loosen up over time, and I've used quite a few that couldn't even stand as they age. And also another issue that I find with this tripod is that it's quite difficult for you to find a level. So with regards to this, it's better that you go with a convention and to invest in a sturdy, a stiff tripod, and only reserve these tripods for really special needs. If you are a videographer who needs to take photos from really weird angles that no other tripod can do the job for you, then go for it. The fifth feature that you should pay attention to in choosing a tripod is whether or not it allows you to take bird view shots. So essentially, shots taken from the above, whether at an angle or a flat lay. This would be most relevant to food photographers who say need to take photos of food laid out on a table, product photographers who need to take shots of dropping products, or vloggers who need to do a video of what's in my bag, what's in my suitcase, my shoe collection, you know, like those are really random examples, but you get the point. So basically, for any shot that happens on a horizontal level, you will need this feature, the ability of the center column to flip 90 degrees so that it works like a crane. At the first instance, this feels like overkill because technically you could just rotate your camera downwards 90 degrees, it will face the ground just right. But if you think about it, it's not gonna work because when you just directly tilt the camera downwards, you're gonna have the tripod legs in frame and you don't have enough room to work with. And so that's why it's essential, if you want to get these type of shots, that you could be able to extend your camera away from the three tripod legs. And this is why it's so important to have a middle column that could send your camera to the deep end. Now apparently there are so many more other features out there that you could look for in a tripod. Since we're talking about entry-level and beginner-friendly tripods, these are the 5 features that I found to be absolutely non-negotiable. And if you found this content enjoyable, please do not watch any of my other videos because watching too much YouTube is bad for you. Bye! If you're interested, I'm going to go through briefly what my go-to tripods are. Basically, my heavy-duty tripod is this Manfrotto B3 GTX Pro, and my go-to tabletop tripod is this Manfrotto Pixie Evo, I believe. So if you're interested, check out the links down below.